who cares about Jersey Shore when Seth Rogen
Seth
just
Rogen is here.
here.
And Will Reiser
About
also.
Jersey Shore.
You do?
Come on in, grab him up. You guys have a bigger entourage than 50 Cent when he was
We were
in
all
here.
pretty deep.
Look at you.
We probably have more guns between the two of us, too.
How you guys doing this morning?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. Thanks for coming on in.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Is this brutal? Like, are you guys? I assume that you guys are up like late, like writing funny stuff and coming up.
We were up until an hour ago, and then we just walked over.
Serious?
To the suit. No.
No, we went to bed at a reasonable hour last
Yeah, I
night.
tucked Seth in at about 10 o'clock.
Does he need his head rubbed?
Read
He
me a
does.
story, yeah. Good night, moon.
This has got to be kind of a whirlwind tour. Like, is it to the point where some days you're waking up and you don't even know what city you're in at this point?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, you generally know where you are. I forget where I was the day before sometimes. It's a little surreal. But it's not that bad, honestly. It's it's not a terrible movie to talk about, I think, on the grand scale of them, because it's personal to us. I think some movies, when you go around doing this, you don't feel any real connection to it. It's just a movie you did, so talking about it all day could be a little annoying. But this one we actually lived, so it's a lot easier to talk about.
What's the last movie that you did that you had to do press on and say it was a great movie, even though you knew it really wasn't a great movie?
I can't talk about
Come on.
He's like, I still would like to get jobs.
Exactly.
I would still like
I
to
don't
work.
believe in biting the hand that feeds me. A lot of actors do, though. Every time an actor trashes one of their own movies, I find that a little ridiculous, to be honest. I think it's... But because they're basically acknowledging they lied to everybody, and it makes me think, like, well, why would I ever believe any promotion they ever do ever again?
Right.
True.
Yeah.
Very true. Well, you guys are both incredible comedians, and I'm wondering if you can give us any tips on comedy, because I think our show could use it. So, what's key to great comedy?
I think... I don't know. I don't think there's any one formula that.
I think for us, it's self-deprecation, making fun of ourselves,
and honesty. I think whatever. I think the more honest you are, the funnier things are. Honestly, see, there you go. But yeah, I think talk about what you know, write what you know. That's what we do.
Were you guys the funny kids in class growing up?
I was the stoned kid in class.
I was definitely the annoying kid who made jokes any possible chance I could, and would get kicked out of class.
I wasn't in class all that much.
Seth dropped out when he was 8.
I was behind the dumpsters. Yeah.
Seth, weren't you doing like stand up when you were 13 years old or something like that?
Yeah, I started right when I got into high school doing stand up. When I was 13.
Like, what kind of material are you drawing from at, whatever, 13, 15 years old, yeah?
It was all, again, it was all, it's funny. When I first started, I would try to write jokes like I saw other stand-up comics write. Like Seinfeldish jokes, like Stephen Wright was a comic I liked. And then I remember a comic came up to me and was like, "You're the only comic here who's 13 years old. You should talk about 13-year-old stuff." And that really cracked it open for me. And I still kind of have that attitude now when I write, is write about what you know. So I would write about trying to touch girls' boobs and wanting to buy porno magazines and
he still uses the same jokes.
Not being able to buy beer. Yeah, a lot of I do. A lot of the stuff in Superbad, actually, some of those ideas came from stand-up jokes that I used to tell at that time.
How do you make cancer funny?
Yeah, right? That's what this movie is about.
I think if our experience wasn't funny at times, then I wouldn't have an answer for that. But I think
it's not making cancer funny; it's the experience of what going through it, and all the dysfunction, and just how we didn't know how to deal with it, and how we were just kind of idiots and immature, and the way we coped was just by making jokes and making fun of the situation.
Yeah, I think when you watch cancer movies, they're always so sentimental and emotional, and we never had any of those conversations. We never talked about dying, or we never talked about our feelings. We talked about getting medicinal marijuana cards and trying to mine anything positive out of it, so it wasn't hard to make it funny, because that's the whole reason we made the movie, is that our experience was very funny at times, and we looked at movies about this kind of thing and we're like, they're ignoring the fact that people don't lose their sense of humor every time this happens.
It was interesting. Last night we were at the Q&A, you were talking about your experience with the Livestrong screening, and how the 90% of the audience stood up and applauded you because they had the same sense of humor going through it. like the comedy is the universal drug that you go to, and the medicinal marijuana.
Yeah, exactly. That's the universal drug.
Now, I don't know that we've established the story here that it was Will that had cancer.
Yeah, 6 years ago, I had a massive tumor in my spine. We realized when I was sick that there was, everyone had this impression of cancer. It was all based on like seeing the bucket list. Everyone thought that was what my experience would be like. Like I would go to Africa and go skydiving, and that just wasn't true, And so Seth and I just would talk about it and say, like, there's never been a movie that portrays what it's like to be young and to have a sense of humor and to just not die at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So we, so Seth really just urged me to write a script about it, and I did. Once I got better.
And did you write during your treatments?
I started thinking about it, but it wasn't until about a year after I got better that I actually sat down and started writing it.
Yeah, but we started talking about making a movie about it while he was still sick.
When he initially told you that he had cancer, what was your first thoughts? I mean, I'm sure a movie is this far away.
Well, first you should ask him where he was when I first told him.
I was sitting on the toilet. I swear to God.
Are you one of those guys that answers the phone?
Well, no, I wouldn't have answered the phone normally on the toilet if 10 minutes before Will called me, another friend of ours hadn't called me and said, Will has cancer. Don't tell him I told you. And then he hung up the phone. And I was like, oh, man. And then I had to go to the bathroom. As I do in stressful times, that's where I take solace. It's my fortress of solitude. And then as I was sitting there, the phone rang, and it was Will. And I was like, oh, man, this is the call. This is it. And I can't not answer it. I'm going to call him back. And so I answered it, and he was telling me, and I literally... I have the very vivid image in my head of me sitting there just thinking, like, I wish I could emotionally connect to him on this, but I'm sitting on the toilet. And I actually,
whether or not you had been on the toilet.
I actually didn't tell him for years that that's how it happened. Because, I was afraid. I don't know why.
That's something you could keep in forever, because now he has the very vivid memory.
Exactly.
But
but we didn't put that in the movie on it because some things that happen in real life are too ridiculous.
No one would have believed that.
Were there other things in real life that you couldn't put in the movie just because, it was real life, but people just wouldn't believe it?
Right before I had a tumor in my spine, and I had to have surgery to remove it. And right before I went into this is like a life-threatening surgery. I went into the surgery, and the nurse handed me all these forms that were like, organ donor, like fusing your spine, removal of vertebrae. It was just all this intense stuff. And I said, the doctor never talked to me about any of this. Is this really going to happen? And she said, well, maybe you should talk to the doctor. And I said, okay, can he come here? She said, no, he's gone to surgery. I said, well, what can I do? She said, well, you'll just have to cancel the surgery. I said, well, I can't cancel the surgery. I was like, but he's a good doctor, right? And she said, well. And then she said, he's not very nice.
I thought she was being serious.
This is insane. I was like, I'm in an episode of Grey's Anatomy.
Me and him slept together last week.
That was literally what I thought. I was like, oh man, like the nurse is screwing the doctor.
But and that was in the script at one point, and I remember we were like, what is this? This is insane. And he's like, that actually happened. And we're like, that doesn't matter.
Seth Rogen and Will Reiser joining us this morning. If you guys are attacking cancer with comedy, is there any topic, Seth, to you at all that it's just not funny, that you can't touch?
Well, I think if you approach it right, you can make a comedy about anything. I mean, one of my favorite movies is Dr. Strangelove, which, was made at like the height of nuclear paranoia, and it's like a comedy about the world blowing up. So, I mean, I look at that movie as kind of the benchmark of how to handle touchy subjects in a humorous way, and I think it can actually be a lot more powerful and significant to make a comedy about something serious because more people will see it. And like a movie like Dr. Strangelove is a good example. The only reason I've even heard of that movie is because it's a comedy and that it's funny. That's why people still watch it, So I think with a movie like this, most people don't want to watch a cancer movie, but if it's funny, then it's something that they'll go to. So I think I think comedy can make a subject that otherwise people don't want to think about much easier to digest.
And I think it's important to keep pushing the boundaries of what is what people do find acceptable. Because I feel like the more we make movies like this, the more just the more people will accept these sort of taboo,
subjects as something that can be.
But I do think we wouldn't have been able to make this movie if we hadn't experienced it. Honestly, I think it would have been much too hard to navigate tonally what was acceptable and what wasn't. We would have just been too worried if we hadn't experienced. But we always had that barometer to go back to. Is like, does this feel like something that would have happened to us? And so it made it a lot easier, I think.
Do y'all ever get hesitant or nervous before you tell a joke or don't say a joke because you're too hesitant about what people's reactions are going to be to it?
I have censored myself.
I have
sure.
it. A good example to me on why not to censor myself is when we were filming Pineapple Express. There's a line, me and Franco are looking at this weed and we smell it, and then off camera I said to Franco, like, oh man, I was about to say this weed smells like God's vagina, but I feel like that might be offensive, and I don't want to say that in the movie. And he's like, yeah, you're right. And then the next take he said it, and and it was one of like the biggest laughs in the whole movie, and that's when I realized, like, I should just say it next time.
It is Seth Rogen and Will Reiser. The name of the movie is 50/50, and it opens
September 30th.
September 30th. And are you shooting another movie around Atlanta? Did
No.
I read that right online? Okay,
No,
then that's wrong.
a few people have said that.
But it's not accurate.
No, I wish I was.
We're making a porno.
Yeah, exactly. Me and Will are making our own private movie around Atlanta.
Good luck, guys. Thanks for
Thanks
coming
a lot.
in. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it, you guys.
Real, funny. The Bert Show.